Hey there, my friend. Abby from Abbi Kirsten Collections here, and in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to make DIY layered color block cards with your Cricut machine for all occasions. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's cover the supplies you're going to need for this color block card project. So for the material, I'm going to be using cardstock. I recommend around 65-pound weighted cardstock, and I will be mixing a variety of smooth cardstocks with metallic and glitter cardstocks, so have fun with your colors and your textures. It really brings the cards to life a lot more. To cut out our template, which you can find more information on below, we will be using a Cricut machine. You can use any of the current models of Cricut machine. They all work with cardstock and glitter cardstocks. You can use the Makers, Explore, the Cricut Joy will work. All those will work for this project. I am going to be featuring some heat transfer vinyl onto cardstock as well in this project. So if you want to follow along, you can go that route, though it is not required. You can just use all cardstock, but I'm going to be featuring some heat transfer vinyl on cardstock. So if you go that route, get the color that you prefer. I'm using white, and then you'll need some sort of heat press. I'm using the Easy Press Mini in this case here. Of course, you'll need your Cricut mat to cut your cardstock out on, and I'll be using my brayer tool to push the material to the mat, which can be very helpful. For adhesives, I'll be using some Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, and I'll also be using these 3D foam cubby tapes here, which are going to add some height and dimension to our card and really make it come to life. You may also want to have a scoring wheel or a scoring stylus with your Cricut machine, though it is not required. You can do this without it. And I also will be featuring a bone tool, which will help me when I crease the card to get that precision on the score line and the crease there down our card. All right, let's go ahead and get started with cutting this out and assembling our project. Okay, so I have my templates loaded up in Cricut Design Space, and you can find more information about working in Design Space below if you're a beginner and need more help. I am going to be featuring this heat transfer vinyl on cardstock in this tutorial. So if you've never worked with heat transfer vinyl before, it's super important to note that you always put the shiny side of the liner down, and you need to make sure you mirror that design in Cricut Design Space. You'll see a mirror toggle in Design Space. Make sure anytime you're working with heat transfer vinyl or things like infusible ink or sublimation, any of those types of projects always require you to mirror before you cut them out, so that when we flip them around to place them down on the design, they appear and read the correct direction. So I'm placing my white heat transfer vinyl, also known as iron-on vinyl, face down on my mat, shiny side down. I have mirrored that mat for that design. It's going to say Happy Mother's Day in Design Space, and we're going to go ahead and get that cut out here. I'm just using the fine point blade that comes with all the Cricut machines. It's going to scan our mat, and then it's going to go ahead and check that we're using the right blade and cut out our material. I'm going to push the flashing go icon. It could look like a Cricut C icon or a play icon. Just go ahead and press that, and make sure you select the correct material Design Space. I'm using everyday iron-on vinyl here, so that is what I'm selecting. If you choose to use a glitter heat transfer vinyl, then you would select that material accordingly. So I'm going to unload my mat, flip the mat over, and peel the mat away from the material, and I'm going to trim that down and weed it in just a second. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting out each of my layers of cardstock. So I've chosen purples, pinks, and yellows here for my design. I'm using 65-pound weighted cardstock, all except for the glitter and the metallics. I would select different material settings for those. There's a glitter cardstock setting in Design Space. There's heavyweight cardstock setting if you're using a heavier weight. There's a metallic cardstock setting as well. So make sure you just check those settings so that you are using the correct one for the material that you are loading into your machine. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all of these layers of cardstock cut out. Okay, so we have all of our pieces cut out. Now, if you decided to do adding your heat transfer vinyl to cardstock, we're going to start with that. If you did not, then just disregard the step and you'll just be adding this on in paper with some precision glue, okay? But I am going to be using the white heat transfer vinyl here on my metallic cardstock. So I'm going to get these put on in sections because, as you can see here, the word Mother's Day, we've got the apostrophe and the S kind of floating here. So I'm going to actually work with this sort of one section at a time, and I'm just lining it up here And we want our Easy Press, I'm using the Easy Press Mini, we want this set to medium. So there's 3 settings, you want it on the second one, medium setting. We're gonna let that heat up there. So my Easy Press Mini here is heated up, and I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna work this one on also. All right, you wanna let that cool for at least a minute before you try and lift the liner from that metallic cardstock base or whatever cardstock you've chosen. Okay, so I'm gonna carefully peel this back, making sure everything is sticking where it's supposed to. If you need to reheat it, you can, although I find usually heat transfer vinyl on cardstocks and poster boards like this, it's usually, it goes on pretty effortless. All right, so we've got those pieces. Don't lose your apostrophe or your S there. Of course, you could always try a different font if you didn't want to go this route, but I will be piecing that together. So we're just gonna set that aside. We're done with our Easy Press Mini, so I'm just going to turn that off and set it aside, and now we'll start building the layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the base, and we're going to go ahead and fold that along the score line if you added that in Design Space. If you didn't, then just go ahead and line the edges up, and you can use your bone tool to crease a nice crisp crease right down the center of your card. Just make sure you go long ways on it here. It's supposed to go one direction to where these are all gonna align perfectly. So just double check that before you actually crease, okay? If you didn't do the score line, if you did, you'll very clearly see where to do that, but just don't make that mistake. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and add these on. I'm going to add each one of these on here first in the order that I had them on my screen. Okay, so I just wanted to get a visual of that first, and I'm going to use the Barely Art glue for this step here. I want these all glued down to the base of the card. While we're assembling the rest of this card, I recommend putting a heavy book on this or something, just so that everything gets nice and flat and that glue is grabbing really well. So that's what I'm going to do. Next, we're going to work on layering these. So this is where the foam cubby packs come in. So I love these from Barely Art. They have a great thickness to them, and they come in different varieties and sizes. I'm going to be using the little squares here, and I'm just going to pull these off, flip over my design, and add them along the back. And then we'll need to remove the little paper backs so that they become sticky on both sides, and then we'll layer these together. You can choose to add the foam cubbies or to just do it all in glue. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, but I do like when I'm doing multiple layers of things like this to add some of these cubbies or foam strips, because they just make the card look that much more three-dimensional, and they really bring it to life. It kind of lets the textures and the colors contrast in a really beautiful way. Okay, so be fairly generous with your cubbies, and there is links for the supplies to the resources you're seeing me use here underneath this video. So I like to use my weeding tool to remove the little paper backs here, because they are a little bit difficult to work with. So sometimes a fingernail works, sometimes you need to poke at it with like a weeding tool to get the paper back to lift off. Either can work. Okay, so I have all of the backs removed from those. I'm gonna line this up with the layer that goes underneath it. Just take your time with that. You can already see how that gives that some really beautiful height to it. And then we have one more layer to add here. So you can absolutely do the cubbies on this one as well. You could do glue if you didn't want to go that route. I'm gonna do the cubbies again. So we'll just repeat this process. And I'm just gonna add these on here. Take your time lining them up. All right, adding my last one on here. There we go. All right, so now I have these really pretty layers here, and mixing in that metallic is a lot of fun when you're dealing with these like layered type of cards. There are these cute little daisies that go with this particular color block card, and you'll notice with some of my other color block cards, I have little supporting pieces that go to them. And I'm just going to take the time to glue each of these together. So nothing super fancy there, just add a little bit of glue and layer the white, in my case, on top of the green base, which is for the little leaves that are poking out underneath. Okay, I'm going to set that aside, and we're just going to repeat this a couple of times. And I'm just going to add on the centers with a little bit of glue to each one of these little daisy layers. Okay, so our little daisies here are done. I'm just going to set that aside. I'm going to take this yellow base piece here. I ended up swapping it out for a different color. You could do 3D foam tape here, but I'm going to use glue for this one, okay? So I'm just going to be adding a little bit of glue, and we're going to center this. I'm going to get that pressed down there with glue, give it a minute to dry. We're going to add this on top. Make sure you check that your card's opening the correct direction before you do any gluing. I just want to get an idea for spacing real quick, and I'll add my S and apostrophe last there. So that looks about right, pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add some glue here. You could do the foam tape here as well. Actually, I might do that. Let's try the foam tape on this one layer as well. All right, so I have my foam tape added on here. I'm just going to line this up where it looks right to my eye, and we'll give that a press down there, okay? Then we're gonna go ahead and add on the Mother's Day part. Now for this one, you know, because we're dealing with the little S and the apostrophe here, which makes it a little extra fun and tricky, I'm gonna go straight with glue because it'll allow me a little bit of more freedom to do some mild shifting if I need to, as well as I don't have to worry about getting the foam tape on something so tiny, which can be a little challenging. So I'm gonna set this one here. All right, and then the very last step is to add on our daisies. The daisies I am gonna do with the 3D foam tape or foam cubby tape here. And for these, be free with them. So stick them wherever you want. If you want, you can just sort of get all of the tape put on and then play with the location before you actually stick them down, because there's really no right or wrong when you're placing these extra little embellishments. It's just what looks good to your eye and the way your card came together. So I'm gonna take a second here just to arrange before I decide on the final placement. So of course, here's how our Mother's Day card turned out, but I also have other designs. So I've created one for Father's Day. I've created one for Valentine's Day, and each of them have little supporting elements to them to bring them to life. I have a happy birthday card as well. We have a general thank you card, which can be for any occasion, and I've also created a teacher appreciation thank you card. And then finally, we also have a congrats grad card. Now, you can customize these in any colors that you like. Now, we also have a SVG file that comes with these templates that is a little money/gift card holder that can go right inside. You can have your Cricut write directly onto the design, and you can slip in a gift card or some cash for your recipient into any of these cards as well and turn them into a money holder card. If you want to get access to all of these templates here and hundreds of more designs, make sure you visit members.abbykirstencollections.com. These are available to all of our premium members. You can go and download them right now and get crafting, and I would love to see your cards. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.